Bless all the paths our feet walk to be free. Bless all the paths our feet walk to be free.
When Actaeon, which represents the hunter who symbolizes the physical self, happened upon the great goddess Diana, naked and bathing, he failed to fall down on his knees and worship her. Instead, he chose to make a sexual advance. Because he failed to see and honor her divinity, she turned him into a male deer, symbolizing his out-of-control horniness. I didn't write this story, but that's what it said. Afterwards, he was killed by his own hunting dogs. The moral of the story is that when our sexual desires are out of control and we fail to recognize the sacred spirit within that which we desire, our actions will inevitably destroy us. Not just with sex, but with everything. With anything we desire, if we don't see the sacred in it while we're desiring it, our desire for it will destroy us. So contrary to popular belief, I don't know, how many of you had, when you were a kid, this whole like scared to death, God's going to punish me about sex thing? Or when you were a teenager? Okay. Well, contrary to popular belief, I thought it was a popular belief, go ahead, sure, that God doesn't punish us for our sort of unloving, unconscious, inappropriate sexual behavior. Our punishment comes from inside of ourselves. It is good, isn't it? But we do suffer consequences of it. It's the cause and effect thing. Anything we do unconscious. I was going to say, did you all just think that you could come today and I'd say, we're just all going to hell, let's forget it? No, but actually, when we dishonor ourselves and other people in any way, we pay for it. We always pay for our unconscious behavior. It's cause and effects, and whether it's sex or whether it's anything else, it doesn't make any difference. So today, my favorite subject, sexuality and spirituality, and how they're actually designed in us to be allies on our spiritual journey, and how we can turn them into sort of enemies on our spiritual journey. So throughout history, every religion and every philosophy has had their ideas about sexual behavior. Some of them have been very strict and very dark and very limited, and some of them have been very uplifting, very expressive to our divine natures. And unfortunately, any of us who live in the West, if we were brought up in the West, are more than likely under the sort of limited, strict, and dark side, because that's what Christianity has, that's the way they have portrayed sex throughout history. So we've been trying to break away from our Puritan ethics in this country since the beginning of time. And because Christianity is still the most popular religion in this country, it has made it much harder for us to heal from our shame and our guilt and all these things that, you know, even though we've grown up in adults and we know better now and we don't think about that stuff that way anymore, but it's still cultural. It's still our culture. It's still the way we talk to kids. It's still the way we treat people. And I do remember, as a teenager, laying in bed, I have this picture in my mind, like solid, laying in my canopy bed, praying, and asking God, please to forgive me and not to send me to hell, and for Jesus to keep loving me, because I had thoughts about sex. Now, I was all that bent over the thoughts. Imagine how bent I was over finally having sex. But I was really confused about what I was taught. And I never was really taught anything different than that as long as I stayed in this sort of regular, fundamental Christian world. And then the 60s came along. We had a sexual revolution. And the pendulum swung way, 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 way over to the left. And it was fun out there on the left, but it wasn't all that spiritual out there on the left. And we've been sort of swinging that pendulum back to the center for a very long time. really sort of defining. We don't want to be out there on the right where everything feels bad, and we don't want to be out here on the left where nothing has any meaning. We need to be someplace balanced in the center where we have both things. Sexuality, joyously expressed and combined with, health and mental health and emotional health and happiness and spirituality. Particularly us in the West, we've centered a lot of our searching for God on prayer and meditation. So we've used a lot of our self-discovery, the idea of self-discovery, as going within ourselves. And, that's at least what us professional seekers have done. But I'm thinking prayer, meditation, sex, I think we've just, taken the wrong path entirely here. But then the worst thing that's happened to us in this country, really the most negative thing that has kept us from being more liberated than a great deal of the world is this fundamental dogma of Christianity. And it started with Adam and Eve, and it started with the church deciding that Eve was evil because she made Adam eat the apple, and they fell from grace, and all this stuff happened. So when you think about the theology of that, it is that Eve, a female, took Adam away from God, out of the garden, away from God. So females are, seductive temptresses who take people away from God. And so that's kind of the church's take on this over history. There's a story that was actually misinterpreted in one of the apocryphal books, that was mistranslated to say that human females are the ones who sexually tempted the angels or slash gods with a small g, and made them come to earth and fall from heaven. Tempted them with their sexual bodies and all that stuff. And the ancient church continued, they continued in this sort of role, the Christian church, of having this sort of taboo idea about sexuality and women. And there's a whole section I read, and I can't remember which book it was in, but I just read it the other night, where, pages and pages and pages of, you shouldn't touch this, and this is unclean, and if you have sex, you have to wash this and wash your clothes. Anybody you touch that whole entire day has to wash their clothes, and it's just this pages of this stuff in the Bible, and I was like, wow. That's better than hospital sanitation procedures. It was like, no matter who you run into, if anybody touches your bed, they must wash their clothes off. So I was like, holy. So, but we've had this idea, and it's been carried on by lots of, St. Augustine was really big in this, idea of sex as not such a great thing, and women as not such a great thing. And then, we had the Dark Ages, and we had the Inquisition, when people tried to be, I might have to change this except my Philip is gone. When people had to be, when sex was really suppressed, and then everybody was like burned at the stake and all that kind of stuff and so we've not had a great history. We've not really, we've had a real damage to the Western psyche in a way about sexuality. So it's really, kind of hard for us sometimes to completely make that leap when we think about people in other religions and other countries and other places in the world who have been in this really expressive place of using sexuality and spirituality together for decades, for hundreds of years, for thousands of years. And we are way behind on that. I remember when I don't need a battery, I just got one, but if this mic is on, I'll hold it, but it's not on.
Which one? Yellow?
Yellow, try yellow. It is yellow. Hopefully that's it. Yes?
Got it.
Got it? Okay, yay. So, we may be the greatest country in the world, but we have some issues, particularly here. In the 70s, when I went to Europe, everybody was out sunbathing all over Europe in their bra at lunch when they went out to eat and sit in the park. And I remember, I do that now, but I remember thinking, oh my God, what a different world this is. And there was no thing about it going on. The Europeans have always been more sexually liberated than we have been. And one of the reasons I believe that is because they've also set Christianity aside before we did. They have far fewer Christian, practicing people now than that we do. And they, a long time ago, decided that they weren't going to sort of do that way. So, it's, you know, Christianity has not been exclusively responsible for the place we have in this, because the biggest problem has been us. We haven't been able to free ourselves. There isn't any church or any organized government that could, impose upon us these ideas and laws that we have if we were so free and good and okay with our sexuality. But we're not so free and good and okay with it. And we have this little place of like, well, maybe somebody else is right. Maybe there does need to be rules. Maybe there needs to be laws. Maybe nobody will know how to act if we don't have them. And so we've allowed this, sacred birthright to be sort of governed by outsiders. But once we completely accept ourselves as beings that we are, and we completely accept all of ourselves and understand that all of what we do and all of how we're made is sacred.
Bless all the past.